First, we're going to start off with the basics of MVC4. Here we have the model, view, and controller. The view is highlighted in blue because that is the main part that we're going to be looking at. However, the UI design is not just limited to the views. Models can also have attributes that control the views, such as required, string lengths, and other custom attributes. Controllers can also have attributes that control access to the view, like you can allow anonymous to certain action results, or you can require logins to secure other parts of your controller. Here we have some of the MVC4 basics. You have your CSS, your JavaScript and jQuery libraries, and then you have an additional JavaScript or jQuery libraries like Knockout, Modernizer, and so forth. The cascading style sheets is a preferred method over inline styles for their reuse. This is also helpful because you're not doing one-off styling for elements within code, but you can have consistency throughout your web application. Also, jQuery can reference these for any of the elements to provide click functionality or any other kind of functionality that you're trying to identify an element with. Other parts we get into are JavaScript and jQuery libraries, and jQuery is the default for MVC as the de facto library. Having jQuery within your MVC also enhances the user experience, opposed to just simple web form post back, very vanilla type of website. Other things you can do to enhance your web application is add other JavaScript and jQuery based libraries, and these include Knockout, Modernizer, and jQuery UI. These three actually come with the MVC4 template, but only Modernizer is actually turned on by default from within the layout page. Layouts in MVC are much like master pages in web forms for ASP.NET. This is a common template that is used throughout your web application. This uses placeholders to define areas for content from view pages, and you can actually define your own custom placeholders aside from the ones that are provided for you from the MVC4 template. Many layouts can exist within an MVC web application, and these are defined by the view start areas within the root or an area throughout your web application. So in other words, you can actually have a layout defined per area if you would like. However, that would probably be overkill, as you want to try to reuse as much code as possible, and having different layouts for every single area is probably not a good idea unless you have a situation where you have a web application that anonymous users are accessing everything in the root, and then say for instance you have an area defined as a member section and you wanted their user experience and their look and feel to be different. Then that way you could probably have a different layout. However, you could probably just get away with having a different menu to keep all your styling the same. Views in MVC4 are different from traditional web forms where you actually had a code behind. Here, the views contain the HTML, JavaScript, and Razor code, and then displays a model passed from the controller. Here, we want to try to keep things as clean as possible by instituting the dry method, or don't repeat yourself. We also use partial views wherever we can, and then also we use custom JavaScript libraries to assist us in user experience within the view itself. Partial views in MVC are much like user controls within the ASP.NET web forms. Here they contain reusable HTML, JavaScript, and/or Razor code. This also eliminates duplication within views. If you use content more than one place, you want to make it into a partial view. This does not require a model to render, unlike templates. However, you can provide a model to a partial view if it is different from the main model of the parent view page that is calling it. And like I said, this is similar to user controls within web forms if you're used to that. So getting started with the basics of an MVC setup, in particular for design, you would go to File, New, Project, and then select MVC4 Web Application, change the name of whatever you want the project name to be, click OK, and then here you have several templates, and you can download more templates, but for MVC that we're going to use, we're going to go ahead and select Internet Application and then choose Razor as our view engine, and then go ahead and say OK. To save time, I've already set up a brand new project, so I'm just going to cancel out of this. And just go File, Open, Project Solution, try the UI. Okay. So what you get with the default MVC4 template, which is different from MVC3 and web forms, is everything is laid out slightly differently. We still have a global ASAX like you would find in web forms. However, you notice we don't have any default pages within the root of our web project. One of the main things where all the views are, these are that display the JavaScript and HTML, they're all sorted by the controller that they belong to. However, the exception to that rule is shared. While there can be a shared controller, usually in your default MVC4 templates, you will not have a controller that goes along with the shared folder. This is a default folder that MVC4 creates that contains the layout, which is our master page, and a couple other built-in display templates for error and your partial login. So some things to note, if we'll just give a quick tour around where things are at within your MVC4 project. If you're new to MVC or if you're coming from MVC version 3, they did move some things around on you, so we'll just go through those. So alphabetically, we'll just start with the app start folder. This is a default folder that is created by your MVC4 template. Within here, you have your authorization configurations, bundles, which I'll get to in a second, your filters where you register global filters and so forth, routes depending on how you want to dissect the route configuration, if you want the controller action then ID, or if you want the ID to come first. Here's where you would define those custom routes. And of course, if you're new to MVC4, we now have a web API, and you can play with that configuration there as well. So let's go back to our bundle configuration, and what this is, let me go ahead and open it fully. This is designed to pull in and bundle together CSS and JavaScript files for you, so you can make a call within your layout page or on individual pages if you just need jQuery or CSS on one particular page and not across your site. You can refer to these script bundles by just calling the tilde/bundle/jQuery in this case, and when you call that, it's going to pull in any version of jQuery that it finds, .js. Another example, here's jQuery UI, and here's jQuery for validation. Modernizer is defined here, and that's actually already pulled into your layout or your master page. And here we define the CSS, and here is all the CSS for your jQuery UI theme. So it gives you kind of a good idea of how to add your custom JavaScript files that you can get into your web application, because you want to do the same thing. However, in my experience, some third-party tools, like from Telerik or their new flavor of Telerik's products called Kendo, they are not really happy about being bundled in with everything else like we're doing with jQuery. So those might be exceptions to your rule for bundling. While you can still bundle all your own custom JavaScript libraries, some third-party tools may not bundle correctly, so you're just going to have to kind of still call them the old-fashioned way from your layout page. Okay, so that was our bundle configuration. The next thing on our list that we want to look at is down under content. This has stayed the same. However, now they provide you with the base jQuery UI styles within here. The site CSS is the same. Controllers, you still get the account and the home controller. Nothing new there. Filters, it does come with simple membership now, which is kind of cool. So you don't have to go to the net and find how to implement that. It comes built in with the internet application version of MVC template. Should specify that. Images are images. Models, it just has the basic account model that goes along with the simple membership. Scripts, this is all of our good JavaScript that comes along with the project. Right now the template's been updated to jQuery 1.8. which 1.7 was kind of the major release, so 1.8 just has a couple extra goodies with it. Comes with jQuery UI, and also now it comes with the jQuery unobtrusive for Ajax and its validation. And you'll notice that there are no Microsoft.ajax JavaScript files here now, and that's because Microsoft has now fully supported jQuery, and that's why you only see really jQuery here, opposed to having a couple of jQuery files alongside Microsoft Ajax JavaScript files. Also here we have Knockout, which is included, and then also Modernizer. Now Knockout is a MVVM, or Model View Model JavaScript engine that assists the UI, or within our views, of kind of keeping track of elements on the page and kind of linking them together, like a text file that's linked to a span that's displaying the first name. As you type in the first name in the text box, it'll change it on the fly for every keystroke within that span. So Knockout has some really powerful stuff way beyond that simple example. But it's included, but it's not turned on by default or referenced by default in your layout page. Okay, so the last section or folder that we're looking at is the views. And again, each of these views, with the exception of shared, actually matches a controller up here. So we have account, we have home, we have home. So that's how that layout kind of works. And within shared, we have our layout page, which is kind of like our master page, as I mentioned before, from ASP.NET Web Forms. So in here, you can see how we're calling our style bundle there. Here we're referencing a bundle for Modernizer, which only has the one file in there, but nonetheless, that's how you reference that. We have partial being pulled in. That's a partial view that's being pulled in. Here we're rendering a section called featured, and so we can call that from any of our views, saying, go to section featured, and it's going to stick it right here in between our HTML. There's our render body that's the same as before. And then again down here, one of the newer things that it's doing now is it's rendering the scripts just before the body tag for jQuery, and this is kind of where you want to do that if you can, if the JavaScript isn't required to be in the head or in the head tag, depending on what you're doing. Like Modernizer, for instance, has to be in the head tag for it to work properly. And last but not least, here's a section that's being defined called scripts. So anywhere in your view, if you have your own script block, you can shove it in a section called scripts, and it will automatically render out after the jQuery is called in this setup right here. So one of the last things, we've looked at all our folders, but one of the last things we're going to look at is the global ASAX. We already looked at the bundles that are up under the app start folder. So global ASAX is kind of the last thing to look at. If we were looking at other things like, if we want session start or other methods we want to override, this is where we would do it. Here we're referencing all the configurations. Later on, when we get into doing browser detection, we'll revisit this so we can actually add mobile detection to it as well.